This week saw one of the most hotly anticipated NFT releases. The MekaVerse was unleashed. First as a sale, then a reveal on OpenSea, and since then there's been a bit of a backlash really, and it points out a potential flaw for anyone who's thinking of, you know, starting a NFT series, but also for, you know, the makers who are already out there. There's a danger that exists. There's already talk of the MekaVerse of being a bit of a rug pull, that consumers weren't supplied with an end product that they thought they were going to get. If you're not up to date with the issues, essentially there's huge amounts of posts on NFT Twitter really to do with the fact that so many of the NFT releases look similar. They share like a huge amount of traits, particularly when you compare them with other hyped NFT releases that are out there. There's so many of the mechs look identical, perhaps with tiny small differences between two. I've seen series of say like 8 photographs together, and you've really got to stare at it for a while to figure out where the differences lie. It's led to a lot of people, quite influential people, not just like the people on the peripheral of NFT Twitter, causing a bit of humiliation really towards the makers of MekaVerse and the buyers. And really it kind of points out this issue. People who are investing in NFTs, particularly the stationary image JPEGs that we see selling for thousands of dollars on OpenSea, these people are investing in something that is an asset. They're not buying the piece of art because they love the piece of art. Well, some people are, but for the vast majority, they're buying something that they can sell either immediately or in the future. And if you strip that opportunity away, essentially you isolate a huge proportion of people who are jumping into NFTs in the same way that they kind of adopted cryptocurrencies, the same way they buy into the hype of the next altcoin that's on the market. And just as people invest in cars that perhaps no one else on their street has got, or perhaps they're the first person to adopt an electric vehicle or a Tesla or a Polestar car, it's so they can show it off. It's so it looks dope pulling up and people will go, what the hell is that? Now, if you're investing in NFTs and essentially there's 8 people in the same space who all possess an almost identical JPEG, it removes that exclusivity. You don't have to spend too much time looking on OpenSea or following the really hyped releases to know that art is really secondary towards, say, the community around it and the hype. Utility should be up there, but it isn't quite yet, I don't think. Art is the secondary. The MekaVerse art, the reveals, the previews, the sneak peeks, it looked incredible. I certainly tried to jump into the sale myself because I'd seen art that I liked, art that I rated, and thought, you know what, if I had to hang on to this for a bit, I'd happily do it because it looks dope. It looks like cool, this sort of Lego mech aesthetic that they had going on, more so than like lots of the other NFTs that I see out there that kind of look to me like what someone would draw on the back of their kind of maths homework if they were bored. That sort of style that I'm seeing a lot of. So when I saw the MekaVerse, I was like, yo, this looks sick. I love the style. I want to see more of it. And if these are the sneak peeks, like the actual release is going to be amazing. And everyone bought into that. The fact is, right now, there's a challenge that's faced. And this goes for any community around an NFT. What you're going to end up with is an echo chamber of people that bought into the item and want to hype it up, so it takes off, so it sells. Anyone who bought on basically has made a profit, but the majority of people that will have botted their way in or set up multiple wallets in order to kind of grab as many of these mechs as possible, they would have seen this as something where they were going to be flipping it for, you know, at a floor level, probably 20, 30,000. Floor right now is around 3 ETH, which is good considering you got in at like, was it 0.5, something like that, or 0.05 maybe even. So a huge increase, a huge turnaround. But what I think we're going to see is the voice out there for the MekaVerse is quite critical. It's people comparing similarities. It's not necessarily people hyping it up. So the only people that I see getting in now are people who want to inflate the price. They're people that want to buy the floor up to try and increase and create like a fake level of interest. Genuinely don't see, unless something magic happens with the utility, I don't see a significant amount of people like me who missed out on the sale trying to get in on like a secondary on OpenSea. I just don't see it, because there's enough out there in the kind of public sphere that points out the obvious flaws with this series in the similarities that are on offer. Now, as consumers, there's little we can do to kind of mitigate for that. Until things are revealed, we never quite know what we're going to get. There's certain things we can do, which is make sure that we invest in art that we like visually, that we follow the creators and the artists and look at their previous work. You know, does this really kind of align with our ideals in terms of like the aesthetic, the scope and the variety? Because if it doesn't, in previous iterations, previous projects, chances are you're going to see that repeated with any upcoming projects. But for people creating the series, I guess what it is a warning shot that unless you build that kind of random generation tool algorithm effectively, you could end up with some unhappy customers and people not willing to buy on secondary. You're going to see sales, but I would imagine that the kind of key investors who bought in at the kind of first sale are probably already starting to shift. I think they're probably already looking at starting to take the profit around 3 to 5 ETH, which is a decent profit. But I can't see, as more people like that drop out, I just feel that there's going to be a danger where the only people who are shilling, the only people who are really talking about like the quality of the MekaVerse are those people who got in possibly on secondary and are now super desperate to see returns from their investment. That might feel like that's the norm for NFTs, but I do think we'll start to see a real shift away from hype towards like genuine community-led projects, utility, and eventually I would imagine what we'll see is the emergence of artists being like the pivotal, the leader. And that's why I think jumping into early projects where you've got an artist who's established, who's already creating work in the space and who's got a good track record is going to be key. If you think about like an equivalence to say like modern art, the artist is the pivotal catalyst, I suppose, in the success of a project. You know, obviously agents and all of these people that can bring and put galleries together is important, but unless the artist behind the project has got kudos, is grafting still, I just don't think the projects are going to have longevity. You need someone who's doing it because they love art, not because they love seeing that ETH wallet increase daily from the commissions and royalties, etc. I would start shifting focus towards projects led by great artists, great community managers, and people with like a genuine vision for the way the project is going to go. I could be massively wrong with the MekaVerse. I just think that the bias is too heavily towards the flaws of the project rather than the opportunities of the project, of which there's going to be loads. There's going to be like amazing stuff happening in MekaVerse. But just go on Twitter, look at the posts that people are making, and like the kind of disregard people are having for the project in its real infancy. That's so dangerous. And all it came down to was poor use of an algorithm to randomly generate. People want something that they can display on their mantelpiece. People want something that looks different from their neighbours, that's desirable, that has features that other people don't have, or a combination that other people don't have. If the combinations are somewhat identical, beyond the kind of maybe the second or third sale, I just can't see it lasting. The floor is going to be saturated by very similar looking mechs, creatures, whatever it might be, and you're going to find it really difficult to shift things if we're getting into stuff for a investment point of view. Doing your own research is really key. Look at the roadmap for a project. Look at how marketing is going to take place. Involve yourself in artists with a track record of success. That doesn't have to be an NFT. If you think about, say, like Beeple, that guy grafted as an artist, and he just tweeted something today, I think, saying it was like 1 year since he learned about NFTs, and you know, and then 6 months later or whatever, he was a multi-millionaire through NFTs. But the fact was, Beeple had success. He had work ethic, and he'd put stuff out there for so long. He'd learned lessons in like the analog world, if you like, before jumping into the blockchain. So if your NFT project loses exclusivity, it's dead. A strong community, and like a genuine community where new people are being brought into that community, will beat hype 99 times out of 100. Absolutely. So it becomes dangerous when new customers, new audience, new collectors become isolated because they feel that potentially the project is running out of steam. One immediate way to do that is give hundreds of people essentially the same piece of art with tiny minuscule differences. It won't fly.